Well, welcome everybody to our presentation on modernizing access control. We're going to talk today about how Ping Identity helps you to support your Zero Trust identity pillar, as well as talk a little bit more about the importance of modernizing access control, why it's important, what you're trying to prevent, and how we can resolve that for you. So just to start out, in the executive order that came out in January of 22, there's some important pieces of that covered identity management, talking about how identity management is central to Zero Trust. Some of the pieces that we've pulled out of there that are key is that you need to have a centralized identity management system for all of your agency users. That includes your population of citizens, your B2G, G2B customers, as well as the workforce for your agency. And that also needs to include a strong MFA solution that can do things like step-up authentication and things like that above and beyond your PIV cards for your workforce. And then also you need to make sure that you have at least one device signal being considered. Those are all pillars of the executive order on Zero Trust and how an identity solution needs to help with meeting that. So what we're going to be focused on today is on that centralized identity management system concept and how Ping Identity can help you achieve that, and specifically where the lifecycle management piece fits into helping you meet your Zero Trust framework. So why am I talking about fraud then? Well, there's been a huge increase in just the recent history of identity fraud around employment. And this has been impacting not just commercial companies, but also the government, with foreign actors specifically trying to get employment positions within the government so that they can exploit gathering of information and sending it off to their target countries, or also sending the funds that they receive through their employment to foreign actors. And so how do we prevent that? What are some things we can do? Well, traditionally, one of the things that's been happening with fraud is it's been identified and caught at the transaction level and not so much at the authentication and authorization level. And so one of the problems there is that means that bad actor has gotten into the system really far before the transaction happens. When you're talking about the citizen population, that transaction could be when they're filing their taxes or something of that nature. But before that, there's a lot of things that happen before they can actually hit that button to file their taxes. With the employees, a lot of times it's not getting caught until after they've been employed and they're doing a verification to try and qualify for a PIV card, or even further on, they're actually accessing systems and something's off with their device signatures. And so what we're trying to do is highlight the importance of catching that at the beginning, before the transaction, catching those fraud efforts. And so how do you do that? Well, the first thing is the prevention side of things, which is to do really good identity proofing and identity verification, making sure that you are using things like CAPTCHAs and things through the employment process when they're trying to put in their application, making sure that you're doing things to capture the event before they actually get to the point where they're being hired or interviewed or anything else, to avoid that employment fraud. But also in the response, when something's identified as being a high-risk transaction that shouldn't be happening with that employee, if they get to the point where they are employed, or where they're trying to do something that is definitely like downloading information they shouldn't be or whatever, the ability to quickly react through a lifecycle management product to do the deprovisioning and reprovisioning of that user's access and highlight the risk because of the identity of that person, that is, it's a reactive response that needs to happen if it's not caught in the prevention side. So today we're going to talk more about how we can take that and use lifecycle management as a way of avoiding employment and citizen fraud in the government. So what kind of solution does Ping Identity provide that helps with this? Well, we cover areas of access with authentication solutions for any identities, as well as the identity management side, which is lifecycle management, provisioning, reprovisioning, and deprovisioning of users, user self-service, those areas, but then also the governance side of a light layer of access requests and access review are all provided with a layer of orchestration covering all of it that allows you to automate and manage the processes that are involved in all of these different identity management processes, all in one platform. And that allows you to then quickly execute and make decisions that will prevent situations like employment fraud, but also make it so there's less friction on valid, good users that should be getting access to your systems. Because that's really the balance that needs to be held in this situation. Is we've identified a huge problem. Fraud is happening. In a lot of cases in the government, it's manual processes for onboarding and offboarding users. There's still forms that are used instead of, and sometimes they're a PDF form, other times they're like a Java form in some agencies that are being used. And so it's not automated, the whole lifecycle management process, and it's not reactive to risk. And that's where things need to be brought into a modern system that can not only automate processes, which automation has been something that's been around for a long time and that we've had a lot of focus on, but also making that risk-based automation so that you're taking risk into consideration when you are automating your processes so that it can be reactive to risk immediately. And one of the important things that we feel is being missed in the identity community is the ability to have flexibility in your deployments. A lot of identity vendors have standardized on cloud solutions. They have a SaaS solution, but they have not supported on-prem solutions for our customers. And we feel that that is vital to meeting the mission in the government, as well as being able to give you the ability to have consistent features that can be deployed anywhere, so you have a consistent way of applying the rules that are needed to prevent risk and fraud. And so we support with full feature parity the ability to deploy to our FedRAMP High environment and have a SaaS solution, but also then to deploy that same functionality on-prem in environments that may be connected on-prem, it may be air-gapped, it may be low bandwidth, whatever it is where you need an on-prem solution, that gives you full feature parity with the cloud deployment. So that you can have confidence that your identity stance and the way that you're trying to secure your environment will be consistent throughout your enterprise, throughout the agencies. And so how are we doing this, and why identity management? Why am I talking about identity management and lifecycle management when there's so many other things that are maybe sexier parts of identity, right? Well, this is going to be the underpinning of the security in your identity ecosystem, is the ability to automate and automate in a way that takes risk into consideration your identity management, your lifecycle management, onboarding and offboarding, and transferring of employees, changing citizen access, changing partner access. Those are all things that need to happen real time and reactively to what's going on in your environment. So those involve a lot of different things. You're taking a feed from some sort of a system, whether it's a user self-registering in the case of citizens, or it's an HR system, feeding in attributes for an employee. All of those circumstances, you need to have an automated onboarding, transfer, offboarding scenario where it's doing lifecycle management, where you're doing password self-service, where you're doing automated provisioning, and also where you have a layer where you can do access requests and access reviews to make sure that you're able to leverage manual processes that go outside of your automated processes. And this all needs to happen in a way that takes into consideration your whole ecosystem. So that can be legacy applications, it could be cloud applications, it can be things like your directories, your databases, things like that, that all need to get some sort of provisioning to give users access. And the key to this is that with a modern identity solution, you can take into consideration a lot of attributes that before we didn't have access to, that come from the access management side, that allow you to make better decisions as to when and why you're provisioning or deprovisioning user access. And so how does this work? Well, one of the things that it's based on is the ability to, of course, have sources of truth, whether that's your master user record or it's an HR system, whatever it is, the data that comes from these systems feeds into Ping Identity and allows you to then make your choices as to how to automate these processes and how to orchestrate the processes around lifecycle management. When you're doing that, you can pull in those attributes that are coming from the history of that user and what they've done in the past and what systems they've been accessing and when was the last time they accessed a specific system, and make better decisions as to why a user needs access. Maybe they've had access to a high-risk system and they've never used it for 2 years. Why keep the access? Let's make decisions that are smart for the agency with your lifecycle management. And one of the things that we consider an important underpinning to all this is the ability to orchestrate. Without the ability to orchestrate your processes and have the ability to put in checks and balances that allow you to do more than just your traditional workflows that have been available, but to pull in data from all of these different landscapes, whether it's privilege management or it's regular access control systems, being able to pull in all that data and use that data to make decisions so that you can then have a lifecycle management process that it truly secures your environment is just vital. And that's where orchestration comes in, because it can overlay everything. It overlays the access management side, the process of authentication, authorization, and your lifecycle management side, and allows you to pull that all together and make it one ecosystem and not just separate verticals, so that you can actually make hard decisions with the least amount of friction possible. And then it also allows you to make it easier and less friction on valid users. And as I've talked about, the important differentiator here is that we can pull in all of that data from the access management and federation side. Without that ability, we're missing a huge piece of the picture that needs to be considered when you're doing lifecycle management. Without the ability to see the history of what the user's doing, what they're accessing, how they're accessing it, why they're accessing it, we can't make decisions that help to secure the organization correctly based on their attributes that we're getting from an HR system or a master user record. We need to see the whole picture. Without the whole picture, we're not going to be able to understand whether or not we're making the right decision for the users and for the organization. And so that's why having a complete identity platform that also includes access management is important to your lifecycle management. And there's a lot of identity vendors out there that specialize in lifecycle management and governance, but they have to pull in from a third-party system all the access management data. It's not native. And that creates a layer of complexity that limits what those systems can do effectively. So having a single identity management solution that's built on the same framework with the same foundation is necessary to truly securing the environment. Now, one of the things that I want to point out that is missing in a lot of lifecycle management systems is the ability to have unlimited flexibility to the architecture of the lifecycle management system. I've worked with a lot of systems over the years, and many of them have limits on how many custom fields, custom objects you can create. We've created a system where there is no limits. You can go in and create your custom objects and create as many attributes in those objects as you want without any limitations, and that allows you then to create an identity management solution that fits your enterprise, your agency. And without that ability, you're having to jump through hoops to try and tailor a system to work for you. And in this case, we give you the full flexibility of being able to make it whatever you need it to be, with full accessibility in the way you create a new object, new attributes. It just extends the system. It's immediately available in your APIs. It's immediately available for things like access requests and access review, where there's no limit to the number of attributes and the number of objects you can create. So that gives us then the ability to have very flexible access requests, access review, and identity reporting because of the extensibility of our system. Now, just in closing, the one thing that I want to point out is that these identity management processes, the concepts have been around a long time. But what we have now is intelligent machine learning based systems that allow you to do this quicker, that allow you to automate things better, and that make it easier to put in place so that you can truly secure your organization and prevent things like employment fraud at the beginning before they get down into the processes by identifying risk attributes that are out of place and need to be reacted to quickly, with the ability to make it faster and easier, to make it more intelligent, and to make it scalable to any environment that you need it to be deployed to, on-prem, in the cloud, in low bandwidth or air-gapped environments. we're giving you the proper flexibility so that you can meet your use cases to truly secure your organization and meet that zero trust framework. Thank you for your time.